Hello, my little piggies. What slop doth mother bring you today? Well, if you've read the title and clicked on this video, you may have a little bit of an idea. I have filmed this video for about 2 hours now. It keeps being very annoying to me. Okay, let's see if we can do this. In the wake of 9/11 and in George Bush's second term as President of the United States, and after the distressingly hopeful ending of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural was water-birthed into a world deeply unprepared to deal with the chaos that it would bring forth. Much like the Hellmouth at the end of Season 2, Eric Kripke unleashed into the world on September the 13th, 2005, the poorest, most pathetic little meow meows you ever did see before or since. So now, in this video, I bring to you, is it a deep dive? Is it a iceberg? An iceberg? I went to university. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's neither. Whatever it is, it's here. Okay, I bring you a mash of genres, much like Supernatural. Kitchen sink, let's throw it all in there. An iceberg, a deep dive, a tragicomedy, very much inspired by Dante's Divine Comedy. I bring you Supernatural, the Divine Tragedy. Let's get a little bit infernal, let's get a little bit demonic, let's get a little bit divine. I will go through 9 layers of this iceberg, talking about what the show is, what defines it, and lastly, what is at the core of Supernatural. And if you know me on Tumblr, you know what's at the core, bitch. You know what's coming, but stay tuned anyway. So the ethos of the show as presented in episode 2 is hunting bad things and saving good people. A very problematic and very simplistic view of the world, which pretty much sums up the entirety of Dean's worldview until season 2, when they introduced the character of Lenore in the episode Bloodlust. Basically, John raised them on this motto: saving people, hunting things, the family business. He's a bad man. John is a bad man. So that is not at all questioned until the episode of Bloodlust in season 2, where they meet the vampire Lenore, who is, along with her nest, something of a vegetarian. She only drinks animal blood as opposed to human blood. We are also introduced to the character of Gordon Walker, who is a hunter. We find out that Gordon killed his own sister once she turned into a vampire. And once we learn that, we realize that Gordon will stop at nothing to kill vampires. He's very good at it, and he just flat out refuses to believe that they're anything but evil. So with that encounter in mind, Dean then starts to question, well, if Lenore is good and she's a vampire and Gordon is bad and he's human, what if we killed things that didn't deserve it? Thus, the show presents another ethos that kind of, I would say, serves until the very last season, which is that your actions define whether you're good or bad, which is, again, very simplistic and very problematic. It also sets its moral compass in Dean's direction. So basically, whatever Dean wants goes throughout the show. He's the one driving the car. He's the one buying the burgers. He's the one tipping the strippers, whatever. What he says goes, because as he says, he's the big brother. That is also presented as problematic, but then it's never really resolved, because in season 5, Sam and Dean have this argument where, while Dean has said he forgives Sam for starting the apocalypse, running off with Ruby and ditching Dean, he's still punishing Sam for it, unconsciously or not. And Sam stands up for himself and says, no, you can't treat me this way. What we were doing before wasn't working, which is why I ran off with Ruby, because you were acting like Dad, you were trying to control me. And Sam has always been a free spirit. He always chooses what he wants to do. So Then Dean's authority is questioned, but basically from then on, everything that he does is just kind of like backed up by the narrative, or at least not questioned directly. For instance, he gets that angel Gadriel to possess Sam. While it turns out really badly, it's still never presented as this like really bad thing that Dean's done. Like, we know it's bad because he literally violated Sam's autonomy to do it, which is something that it's just beyond words. But it's not presented as something that Dean feels the need to atone for, which is fucked up, because Dean does a lot of things that he should be sorry for, and then it's just never questioned. Dean is the heart of the show, he's not the brains of the show. You can think of it this way, as a way that I just now articulated. Sam is the brains, Cass is the heart, and Dean is the soul. Like Cass says, Dean feels things more deeply, more acutely than any other person that Cass has ever met. But Dean is also a very special person in that he does kind of feel things in a way that nobody else does. And he has a lot of complexes, but that's what I mean. He's the soul, he feels things. He shouldn't be the leader. Sam should be the leader. Sam should be calling the shots. So while Dean's ideas really do cause as much harm as anything else in the show, no one really questions either his actions or his motives, because we are supposed to understand that Dean's motives are always good because he is the brains of the show, But you can't just take that on faith, funnily enough, is because Dean questions everything, but we're not supposed to question Dean. And no characters stand up to Dean in a way that actually matters or that changes either Dean's actions or the course of the show. It's only when Dean chooses to act in a certain way that he changes. He is the one who has to change himself, which is fine because that's usually how it goes. But it's only in season 15, in the episode The Trap, where he thinks that he's lost Cass again, and he literally falls to his knees and apologizes in prayer. That's when he changes his ways. And it's like, babes, you're literally 41. Like, you've gone your whole life just acting this. Love ya, miss ya, kiss ya, bye. Level 2. Family. The idea of the nuclear family, mum, dad, 2 kids in a nice suburban home, is disrupted within the first 5 minutes of the show, where the mother, Mary, the life giver and the taken away, gets pinned to the ceiling and burned alive within the first 5 minutes. And her husband and sons are left to pick up the pieces of their family. It is a tragedy that haunts the entirety of the show right to the very last episode. Mary is mentioned in one of the last scenes of the whole show. In season 1, episode Home, they go back to their home and they find that Mary is literally a spectre that is haunting the place. And she gives up her afterlife in order to save them once again. It is this figure of Mary who comes back again and again in various forms. They're consistently pulling Samantha Smith back into the show. She's even brought back to life at the end of season 11, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, season 11. And reintroduced into the show as one of the recurring cast members. And you'd think that it would solve some of Dean's mummy issues, but the boy just won't quit. The idea of family is never quite what the characters and what the audience wants it to be. While it's so integral to the show, it is also deeply fucked up. In the first episode, Sam tells Dean that Mum's gone and she's not ever coming back, which causes Dean to act out because he has, as I said, deep-seated mummy issues that go back to when he was 4 years old. Actually, before that, to when he was picking up the pieces of his family that John created as a child. This baby can cram so many issues into it. So while Sam doesn't have any memories of, living with Mary, having that family all together, Dean does remember things like comforting his mother when she was upset, him making her lunch. He even remembers the fire and carrying Sam out. So he has all these horrific memories that are attached to this sense of home and family that is at the core of him. Family is what keeps Dean going. It's the most important thing to him. And we see that he attracts people into his circle, people like Charlie, Rowena, Cass, Benny, Kevin, who he considers family and he keeps around. Towards the end of the show, Dean, Sam, Jack, and Cass are all living in the bunker together. And it's this beautiful little family that they've created together. And it's something that Dean just holds so dear to him. Sam, less so. I think Sam is more utilitarian in that he has people that he trusts. I think family is such a fractured word for him that he has no sense of family outside of people he could trust. I think is how he thinks of things. Whereas family has always been a term that's been used against him, like his father saying, I'm your father, so you'll do what I say. And he doesn't hold good memories when it comes to family because he's been abused by his family. His father, particularly his whole life, he's had horrible memories attached to the concept of his mother, who he's never really met. Cass makes his own family. He chooses to raise Kelly's child, Jack, and he chooses to father his vessel's child, Claire. He gains a family by bringing people together, like in the very queer, found family way. He just attracts people to him. He just chooses people that he wants to be around, and he clings to them until they're like, well, actually, you're kind of cool and I'll keep you around now. The most pathetic little meow meow. Let's just be real. He's so pathetic. Like a wet cat. So the show was created by a Jewish man and has Jewish theology baked into it. While it does draw on Christian and Catholic theology, it also borrows from like backroads Protestantism, voodoo, Bible thumping evangelists, and tent-based faith healers. In the first season, they go to an actual faith healer in a tent. In the course of the first 5 seasons, we go from individual faith and individual healers and priests to a town full of sinners in season 5 to an entire afterlife of both heaven and hell. And then in season 8, we're introduced to the concept of purgatory. So it really does expand throughout the seasons. I've just done some cursory research. If anyone would like to correct me or add anything about this in the comments, please do. Would love to hear from some people who understand the Jewish faith a lot better than I do, as to whether they agree or if there is anything you would like to add. In Judaism, hell is called Sheol and is described as dark and deep, a pit, the land of forgetfulness. And they do call hell the pit many times. Alistair particularly calls hell the pit. Rabbi Yaakov claimed that while life is full of suffering, the afterlife promises rewards. This is called Olam Haba, the world to come. In the show, this is an idea that is pushed by angels throughout at least the 4th and 5th season, and even some angels beyond that. They want to promote this idea of heaven being this like mystical place that is the cure for all the horrible things that happen on Earth. Dean understands that the things that they go through on Earth are horrors, and yet he doesn't want to trade that for anything else. He believes that the world that they go through on Earth is what's real. Family is what's real. People are real. But even when they go to heaven in season 5 and he talks to Pamela and Ash, God, I hate Pamela. God, I hate Pamela. Oh yeah, talk to your fucking about what the afterlife is like. Thanks, great. Pamela says that, this is heaven, it rocks. Every day is a Led Zeppelin concert or whatever. And Dean says, no, it's just Memorex. It's not real. Pamela says, like, well, better than burning in a pit for the rest of eternity. I think Dean really does subscribe to the idea that he doesn't deserve a reward for the things that he's gone through. He is very much torn up by the things that he's done. He also carries this guilt around with him, and I did have a little bit about Jewish guilt in here, but then I cut it out, so I don't know. I think he believes that all the bad things that have happened to him, his brother, his family are his fault, and he can't break out of that cycle of intergenerational trauma. The thing he obviously needs to do is forgive himself and learn how to love himself and just devote time to caring for other people, which he does eventually, but because he's so broken up about how bad life has treated him, he has convinced himself, or someone else has convinced him and he's believed them, probably John, that the things that have happened to him are his fault, and there's no getting around that. After he reveals the fact that he tortured people in hell and then that he liked it, he is so destroyed by that. I'm actually getting choked up. Oh my god. He is so destroyed by that pretty much everything from there on out is just this huge burden. I think his life is his burden. And in season 3, he was able to break out of the cycle of impending doom and having to carry around this massive weight and have the fate of the earth on his shoulders, because he was free to die. He was going to die in a year. And he could just live. That's just the saddest thing of all. And then he comes back anyway, and it's like, oh wait, no, there's even more weight on your shoulders. Like, oh. And so Sam similarly feels guilty about the things that have gone right in his life, because he's committed the mortal sin of starting the apocalypse and freeing Lucifer, when in fact that was the angel's plan all along. So while he does feel guilty about that, it's not his fault. It's not his fault. And I'm getting so heated about this. Oh my god, I feel like I'm right there. I think I've just destroyed my brain cells. They are both willing to suffer an eternity in hell. Sam in Lucifer's cage in order to repent for the things that they've done on Earth, which refutes the claim by some rabbis that suffering on Earth is necessary for peace. Unfortunately for Sam and Dean, there is no peace when they are done. The show also introduces a number of other characters from various religions and mythologies, such as Kali, Odin, Zeus, and usually they just stick around for one episode. And usually they also die with a wooden stake. Okay, well, you can't kill God with a wooden stake, but you can kill Kali with a wooden stake. I don't think so, babes. The show also introduces the character of the biblical god in season 5, but he disappears for 5 seasons and then comes back into season 10, presumably kills a whole school of children, then declares himself bisexual. Only on Supernatural. So the first thing we understand about Sam is that he's not like the other boys. He's a bit weird. He's a weirdo. He doesn't want to go to Halloween parties. He doesn't like his family, and he also hunts and kills monsters. What a weirdo. Am I right? Who would want that life? Not me. I would never ever want to ride around in a cool car, chopping heads off vampires and living out of motels. That would not be a cool and fun idea for be my perfect life, honestly. I feel like I've just been like moving towards that. My entire life has just been like, why don't you just live in your car? None of these characters fit in. Sam doesn't fit in because he's the freak with the knife color. No, that was Joe. Was that Joe? I keep saying that. I think that's Joe. Sam is also the freak with the knife collection. Like every time he tries to fit into civilian society, it's like his girlfriend gets murdered. Some guys come around and force feed him demon blood. Poor guy, he just can't catch a break. He's presented as like the normal one, while Dean's like the gruff, womanizing Jack the Lad. In reality, they're both fucking freaks. Dean, like, thinks he fits in, but it's really just a disguise. Like, it's a chameleon suit, you know? Like, he can blend into any situation for about an hour. Okay, 5 minutes. For about 5 minutes. Let's give him 5 minutes. And then shit gets hairy. He doesn't really fit in because all he wants is, like, a home and a husband and a kid to, like, bake birthday cakes for. And he should have that. Oh my god. And he gets that. He gets to have a kid to make birthday cakes for. It's a very, very emotional episode. Sam has never really managed to fit in anywhere outside of like a hunting scenario. He's shown to be an even better hunter than Dean, who is the guy. Dean is the guy. When they save the town full of apocalypse world survivors, Sam like immediately just takes to sending them out on missions and leading them, and it's just amazing. He's just so good at that. So it actually makes me furious to think that they just did away with 15 seasons of character development and gave him a blurry wife and a Dean son to take care of in the middle of the suburbs. And so he just died in a hospital. Character assassination. While Dean seems to fit in, we come to learn all the things that are like absolutes about him in the first season, like his taste in music, his love for his car, his leather jacket, like the things that make Dean Dean are all just things he's adopted from his father pretty much. And then it kind of takes a little bit to get to who Dean really is. And he is at the core of it a very simple being wrapped up in complexes. And that's the only way I can describe it. He just wants, like I said, to bake cakes for his son and wear an apron. So Dean is very closeted and can never really let his vulnerability be shown unless he is in a physically vulnerable state, such as the scene where he and Cassie have sex, and then afterwards they're able to talk about why they broke up with each other, and that was a very hard time in Dean's life especially, and it kind of set in motion this idea that he can't be loved for who he is because no one's going to believe what he does. And that's very sad, but it also draws back on his previous complexes. Another example is the scene in the crypt with Cass, where Cass is beating Dean to death. And Dean says, "Please don't do this. Cass, I need you." And that was actually Jensen Ackles' line to say, "I need you," instead of "I love you." Because to Dean, needing someone is the same as loving them. And, you know, that can be true. Like with my wife, I need her to live and I can't live without her. And I love her so much that every time I talk about it, I start crying. But I think it's the same for Dean. It's like, if he really needs someone, because he's very self-sufficient, you know, he has gotten by his entire life not needing anyone, only really wanting to be around his father and his brother, and refusing to be vulnerable around anyone. So needing someone is being vulnerable. And that's the situation that he's vulnerable in, is when he's physically vulnerable, like either just having sex or being beaten to death. And that is wild. Boy, come, my D. So Cass is often shown as the odd one out in every situation, whereas in actuality, he's really capable of handling himself. He is an angel of the Lord. Like, he's fine, you know, just because he doesn't know which way to turn a goddamn FBI badge. It's just a cute quirk. Okay, we love him. He's fine. Leave him alone. While he seems to be the odd one out on Earth, he is also the odd one out in heaven. We find out in season 8 that Naomi has been lobotomizing him for thousands, millions of years. At this point, we don't know. Do we ever know? Sound off in the comments if you know the timeline for the show, because I've seen this show so many times and I still don't understand the timeline. I would like a map. I would like a drawn out timeline of events, please. Someone, Meredith Glynn, Andrew Dabb, Steve Yockey, anyone. But again and again, we find that Castiel refuses to be chained or to be held down because he is one of a kind. He is the instigator of free will. We find that in the episode The Monster at the End of this book, Castiel chooses to help Dean in a way that kind of circumvents his ability to help Dean. So he gives Dean this piece of information that allows Dean to change the course of events. He invents free will in a way that God did not see coming. So it only makes sense that Castiel would be the one to choose what happens at the end. He then gives his life in the third last episode for Dean and Sam to save the world. Has everyone said that they love Castiel today? Have you prayed to Castiel and told him that you love him? I'll wait. Okay, let's continue. Otherness and supernatural also comes in the form of race, class, gender, sexuality, and also in the form of Bobby in season 5 and Sam's love interest from season 11 onwards, Eileen Leahy, physical disabilities, which is very cool. We love to see it. Would love to have seen more signing from everyone on board, considering that Shoshana Stern gave sign names to everyone and then like barely anyone used sign language. Can we, like, Cass is proficient in every human language. He would know sign language. Can we see that, please? Can we normalize sign language? Thanks. As the seasons go on, the hunter community grows more diverse as the writers themselves of the show, the writing room, grew more diverse. I need to point out that in terms of racism, classism, sexuality, and gender specifically, this show has done historically awful things to any marginalized group and has done specifically racist things, particularly in terms of characters like Isaac the Hunter in season 3, Gordon Walker in season 2 and 3, Billy, oh my god, can we do a whole video on how they assassinated Billy? Metatron as well, he's this, as someone pointed out, a very racist Jewish stereotype. I'm not too sure about it, I haven't done any research into that. Next! Heaven is hell. Purgatory is... Heaven is hell. Purgatory is heaven. Hell is purgatory. As we see when the angels are introduced, Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. The heaven that they promote to Sam and Dean is what Dean calls Memorex. It is not actually a place that is just Earth plus. It is a completely alien concept that only Ash seems to know how to control. Heaven is a corrupt fascist state run by dictators like Naomi, Michael, Raphael, Metatron, and later Duma. And Lucifer. Oh, don't forget about Lucifer running Heaven. Heaven is not only a tool used to manipulate people on Earth, but it is also used to manipulate angels, as we see with Lucifer. If you go against God, you are cast out of heaven. If you have doubts, if you don't have complete faith, you are cast out of heaven or murdered. In season 6, when Cass goes back to heaven after the apocalypse is averted, he finds that Raphael plans to put the apocalypse back on, free Michael and Lucifer, help get 3 billion people murdered and the souls sent to heaven, and use them to become more powerful. Heaven is hell of the angels' making. Dean describes purgatory as clean. While he's there, he gets to run around with his 2 boyfriends, being a massive homo, not having to worry about fuel for his car or food or motel room money, but instead he experiences all the highs of his fight or flight reflex and gets to fight vampires for a whole year. It's literally heaven for him. Like, it's the best year of his life. Purgatory is the only place that monsters can go. Even if Lenore did stick to her herbivore diet and she chose to be good, doesn't mean that she'd go to heaven. She'd still have to fight her way through purgatory for the rest of eternity. As Meg says, hell is hell even for demons. They get sent there, they get tortured, they make their way back to Earth, they possess someone. That person, because they've done a bunch of bad things, when they're possessed by demons, they get sent to hell, get turned into demons, go up to Earth. It's just this monotonous circle, right? Even the demons want to get out of hell. It's not until Crowley takes over in season 6 that hell sees any sort of real change. Where it was once chains and whips and hooks, it's now a line that just stretches on and on forever, and as soon as you get to the front of the line, you actually just end up going to the back of the line. Apparently, British people hate standing in line, so I can understand how that could be hell to them. For everyone else, it just seems like, well, that's just purgatory, right? You're just there waiting. You're just waiting and waiting and waiting. Sounds like purgatory to me. So hell changes over the years, and in season 10, it kind of becomes a place that anyone can kind of walk into and out of, like demons, angels, humans, reapers can walk in and out of with the right passwords. In season 15, all the gates to hell are opened and billions of souls pour out, so they have to kind of close them up again. And then Rowena becomes Queen of Hell, and it's this beautiful, like, brutalist architecture with lots of gold and stone. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It looks regal. It looks really regal, and it's quite fit for a queen such as Rowena McLeod. Desire, repression, consumption. One of the steps in making a character is giving them something to want and then denying it. That's how you build a real character. You have to make them work for it. One of Sam's vices is the consumption of demon blood. It's brought about in season 2 and continued in season 4 and 5, where it seemed to be basically the worst thing that he could possibly do, drink demon blood. Like his relationship with Lucifer, he can never quite rid himself of it, such as the nature of like alcoholism or drug addiction. He calls it a disease, and that's what it is. It's an addiction. It's a disease. He gets addicted to drinking the demon blood, but he also gets addicted to the feeling of power it gives him, but also the powers that it gives him. Sam is shown to want various things over the seasons, that run in counterpoint to Dean. So while Dean is running around in purgatory, Sam is settling down with someone he wants to be with for the rest of his life, Amelia. That is used mostly to parallel Dean's relationship with Benny and Cass. Sam goes through a love triangle, Dean goes through a love triangle. After season 8, in which he goes through the demon tablet trials, he kind of stops being a real character in that he doesn't really want anything. So there's nothing to deny him. It's not until he starts being the leader of the little troop of Apocalypse World veterans that we really see him come into his own. By that stage, his characterization is so stilted and so pushed to the side that it's hard to say what he really wants, because in this first season he starts off so strong, so defiant, and by the end of the show he's so beaten down. It's really quite sad to see him just give up on his life that he is so clearly well built for, which is running the Hunter Refuge Center and Monster Rehabilitation Clinic with Eileen, obviously. So Dean is a being of lust that is so strong it cannot possibly be contained in one person. Dean can never say what he wants, even when he knows he wants it. He seems to be chronically incapable of ever admitting to any kind of vulnerability, except, like, as I said, in the case of being physically vulnerable. When he does admit what he wants, it's absolutely heartbreaking. It's like, please don't die on me, or I want to be loved. So for the most part, he lives his life very surface level in his desires and pleasures, whereas what he really wants is quite simple. He wants a family, he wants a home, he just wants to hunt vampires, bake cakes. We can say this for certain though. Dean is attracted to men. He loves men, he has sex with men. This is canonical. It is shown in his relationship with Benny, in his relationship with Crowley, and specifically with Cass, how they fall in love with each other over the course of the show. While Dean and Cass's relationship is never explicitly defined as romantic or even really explicitly defined, they call each other their friend, their best friend, but it's more than that. There is definitely an element there that is like more than just friendship on the line. Why would Dean, I'm literally gonna cry, why would Dean want to kill himself and actually kill himself every time Cass dies? Why does he resort to such lengths if this is just someone, a friend like Kevin or Charlie? Because Cass is not just a friend. He is, I hate to say it, something more. He is both Dean's friend and something else. He is Dean's lover, his confidant, his soulmate, his silly rabbit. So while they never define the relationship as explicitly romantic, they never do that for Eileen and Sam either. There is never this talk about Sam saying, well, Eileen's my girlfriend, or we're going to get married, or anything like that. So if we can say in one instance a couple that is clearly together, Sam and Eileen, why can we not say the same for Dean and Cass? Why can we not look at the things that they've gone through over the past 12 seasons and say, well, they've got something going on there. When Dean falls to his knees in purgatory and begs and prays that Cass is okay and cries and says he's sorry, do you think that Sam would do that for Cass? Do you think that Dean would do that for Eileen? No. Sam would do that for Eileen. Eileen would do that for Sam. Cass would do that for Dean, because Cass and Dean are in love the same way that Sam and Eileen are in love. When you put those two relationships side by side in the same season...
You are currently caller number 5, waiting to speak with a representative. Thank you for your patience.
Gaslighting us for 12 fucking... It is gaslighting by the... They were trying to tell us. For 12 fucking years, they said, nope, Dean isn't bisexual, they're not in love. But then why did you do market research to find out whether you should make Dean and Cass go canon in like season 13? Why was the entire season 15 leading up to Cass and Dean getting together? Why parallel Sam seeing Jess and Vince seeing his ex-girlfriend with Dean, who was actually Lucifer, with Dean thinking he's seeing Cass, who was actually Lucifer? Why Dean, Benny, Cass, Sam, Amelia, Army Guy, love triangles? Why personal space? Why love can get crazy? Why Orpheus Eurydice turning back to look at Cass on fire? Why Portrait of a Lady on Fire turning back to look at Cass on fire? If I sat down and made a list of every instance that could be deemed Dean and Cass being in love with each other, it would just, it's every instance. Every fucking instance of them in the same scene. Why does Cass need the amulet that Dean has been wearing since he was a child? And then when Cass gets distraught by his search for God, Dean throws it away. Dean's main desire is family, and building on from that, he wants to settle down in a comfortable home with his family. Viewer, reader, audience, lover, he gets it. He gets to have a home with his husband and his brother and his kid, where he gets to bake his kid birthday cakes and wear pajamas. Dean gets to be told the thing that every traumatized LGBTQ person who has lived their life thinking that they're a burden, that they don't deserve to make it past 25, deserves to hear. He's loved, that he is worthy of being loved, that he can love other people, that he is a being made of love. Cassia's desire is also love. He falls for love. He rebels for love. He chooses love again and again. He helps Kelly give birth to Jack and then raises Jack as his own son because Jack chooses him. He loves his kids, Jack and Claire, and he chooses to be with them. He chooses to be with the Winchesters over and over again because they're his friends, they're his family. And he loves humanity enough to die for it again and again. And apart from love, his desire is to show kindness. Instead of killing Kelly, he helps her. And when he has nothing better to do, he travels the world healing babies. I can't believe this show gave him to me and then took him away. So with repression, the angels are pretty much masters of it. They are shown to be as interesting and unique as any other character in the show, but if they don't show absolute devotion to God and to the other angels, then they're killed. And I've talked about in a previous episode how an angel falling can be an allegory for being transgender. The allegory of monsters and supernatural is that they are beings of pure consumption. Season 7 shows us a worse monster than Lucifer, and that is the Leviathan. Not only is it a season full of dick jokes, but it is also something that is so scary. It's the monster in the dark that they don't know how to defeat. So where can you go from, oh, the devil, to what else? Well, they've opened up purgatory now. And what lives in purgatory? The hungry things that consume. and they hear and they desire. Lucifer and Michael can send humans to heaven or hell, but the Leviathans don't make any exceptions, and their hunger knows no bounds. Part whatever, illness and disorders. Content warnings for this section include mental illnesses, disordered eating, unhealthy coping mechanisms, and unhealthy body image. Sam is often shown refusing food and not eating, either at times when Dean is eating and sometimes not eating as much as Dean. So a lot of the time this is used to show that Dean overeats. He's eating too much. He is the being of consumption, when the opposite is also true. Sam eats too little. He is a being of restraint, of repression. When we do see Sam eat, it is usually very healthy and usually not very much. We see him shirtless a couple times, and like most actors, obviously have to keep up a certain physique, but Jared Padalecki is like extremely cut. He's very fit, and it's quite alarming to think about how little Sam eats and how much working out he must do to keep that physique that Jared Padalecki has. So disordered eating and a strict workout regimen can be used to control the chaos in your life if you live a very chaotic life. And Sam does live a very chaotic life. He often doesn't know when he's going to sleep. He doesn't know when the next case is. It's not really until season 8 that they have any sense of normalcy of like, well, they can sleep in the same place, or they can put their toothbrushes in the same place without having to pack up and move at a moment's notice. And as someone who is currently homeless and has been bouncing all around the shop for months now, I can tell you that does take its toll on someone. But of course, Sam has been living his life that way forever, since he was 6 months old. So having control over his diet and his workout regimen is a way to control the chaos of his life. But it can also be, this is my personal interjection, a way to control a mood disorder, a cyclical mood disorder such as bipolar. Having bipolar myself, I've been told that the only two ways to effectively manage it are medication or a very strict lifestyle. And that means going to bed at the same time. It means eating mostly the same things, working out every day, getting up at the same time every day. And when I was told that, I was like, that's absolutely not for me. However, that is something that Sam can manage, at least with his diet and his workout regimen. He may not always be able to control when he goes to sleep or when he wakes up, but he does tend to set his alarm. So, you can kind of control the amount of hours you sleep as well, even if you don't know when you're actually going to sleep. By the time you hit the pillow, you can, set your alarm for 7 hours and wake up then. So my personal interjection is that he could possibly have bipolar and therefore need to eat a certain way, healthily, orthorexically, who knows, in order to maintain his mental health. So for Sam, food and sleep are the first two things to be interrupted when he's going through a crisis. As we see in season 8, when he's doing the trials, he refuses food and gets sicker and sicker. In season 7, when he's being plagued by visions of Lucifer, he tries to get back alley drugs in order to knock himself out. Again, this doesn't work. And honestly, that also points to bipolar as well, having the mania, the lack of sleep, the hallucinations. Been there, babes. And also the bouts of depression that affect him in other areas of his life, such as that episode where the trickster kills Dean again and again, Tuesday's mystery spot. Sam goes on a months-long rage-induced bender of killing monsters at just like a Terminator level because he's so distraught by Dean's death. That's be considered depression, honestly. It could be depression and or mania. Ugh, oh my god. Don't even get me started on like combined episodes. Is it mania? Is it depression? Why not both? Well, how about just one? Thanks. Oh my god. A joke that has flown around fandom for a while is that Dean is so easy to project onto because he has every disorder in the DSM 5. And here are some of mine. I agree with this joke. The diagnoses that I have that I feel that Dean also has are ADHD with OCD, borderline personality disorder, bipolar 2, which includes depression, and hypomania, which is different to the psychotic mania that Sam experiences, but bipolar does run in families like ADHD. And as I've been learning more about my own histrionic personality disorder, yeah, I see a lot of that in Dean as well. Again, they shoved an entire DSM inside this man and were like, this baby can fit so many mental illnesses. Cass clearly has autism and his special interest is humanity. We're getting into it now. Here are some instances of the intergenerational trauma that plagues the Winchester family. They inherited the bunker, the Men of Letters bunker, because they are both legacies to the Men of Letters and children of a hunter family that dates back to at least the Mayflower. Sam basically becomes their dad when Jess dies, and he goes back to hunting to avenge Jess's death because the same thing that killed Jess killed their mother, which caused John to become a hunter. Mary grew up as a hunter, even though that was not the life she wanted to choose for herself. And then even when she got together with John, she kind of continued to be a hunter a little bit, is what I'm getting from that The Life of Asa Fox episode. So Mary carries the mantle of hunter basically to her grave and then beyond, and then back, and then beyond again. So Mary dies before her sons can learn that she's a hunter and learn about hunting from her. John dies before he learns that his father is a man of letters. A man of letters? A man of letters? A man of... Yeah. We see Mary's father, Samuel, so traumatized by her death that he starts working with the King of Hell. And then that trauma is again passed to John, who is so traumatized by Mary's death that he becomes the world's shittiest hunter and pisses off everyone and gets everyone he ever works with killed. Horrible man that he is. And it doesn't stop there. The curse that the Winchesters have goes all the way back to Cain and Abel, where Cain killed Abel to save him and got a mark from Satan and then became the king of hell and charged around with Satan's knights wreaking havoc for millennia, I guess. And then Dean later bears this mark to kill Abaddon, and to get the mark off he kills Death and releases the darkness. But wait, it goes back even further because the first 5 seasons revolve around Sam and Dean being Lucifer and Michael's vessels, and how it's in their blood, their family's blood, and it dates all the way back to Cain. Now we're getting to the juicy middle. Layer 9, The Glory of the Divine. This show is a trans and gay allegory. Dean and Cass are trans gay men. And if you don't get that, you don't get the show. And so when I say gay, this is open to interpretation. At first I was very much like, no, Dean is bi and Cass is gay. And then I was like, no, wait, they're both gay. And now I'm like, well, actually Dean's gay, but Cass is probably bi because, as Meg says, he knows how to make a woman's I can't even finish that sentence. It was disgusting. But he does know how to do that. But going back, this show is a trans and gay allegory. Gay and trans people flock to this show. It's very funny to think about how Dean, 26-year-old teenager, has this effect on young closeted eggs. How we don't know we're trans until we see Dean wearing his dad's leather jacket. Something about season 1 Dean. Don't know what it is. Cannot pinpoint it for you, but he is very much an egg himself. Okay, I have a lot to say, so I might just read off my notes actually. So the season 1 episode Bugs introduces the concept of queerness in the form of a realtor mistaking Sam and Dean for being a gay couple. It's meant to be a joke because, ew, they're brothers. That's disgusting. So stop talking about it. It's also a very interesting way to think about them talking about gay people. Because this show does not do well with gay people. The LGBTQs. I can write a whole fucking thesis about how bad we are done in this show. So mainstream media from the noughties that included LGBTQ people or references to us were overwhelmingly negative. Despite many of the most famous movies during this period having obvious queer subtext such as Batman and the Joker in The Dark Knight, Roman culture and Gladiator, sapphic on sapphic violence in the Kill Bill franchise, sapphic on sapphic violence in the Mean Girls franchise? No. Sapphic on sapphic violence in The Devil Wears Prada. You get it. The majority of mainstream films, especially comedies, treated LGBTQ people as a joke. I feel like in this episode, they're not making fun of gay people. Supernatural introduces a number of canonically LGBTQ characters, including Lily in the second season, a lesbian who kills her girlfriend through touch, Charlie, a lesbian who is murdered in a bathtub, Claire, a lesbian who thankfully survives the show but isn't seen after season 13, my girl Claire. Where is she? Where's my baby? Where's my baby? Corbett, a poor dead gay intern, and Crowley, whose introduction shows him kissing a homophobe, and most notably, Castiel, the most pathetic little meow meow in the garrison. God, I love him. So overwhelmingly, Supernatural does not treat its queers well. Rarely do any of them end up happy, except for Castiel apparently, whose greatest happiness was declaring his love for the man he fell from heaven for, and then dying and getting sent to mega ultra super hell. If you think I'm over this, I'm homeless, right? I'm homeless. I cannot stop thinking about this. Every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, I haven't found a home. But did you know that Castiel is dead? Did you know that Castiel died for Dean? It's my every waking thought. Every thought is taken up by, excuse me, about Castiel. Hello, have you heard of Castiel? Hello, Castiel. We love you, Castiel. I love you, Castiel. I'm really tired. I'm probably just going to be reading off my notes from this. I apologize. Extending on my section about desire and repression. Gay love is often expressed as repression. Love between people of the same gender is often expressed as more difficult than attraction to someone of a different gender. I'm going to throw out some examples of movies and TV shows that show gay or bi main characters having to hide their identity in order to exist in society or as part of the plot. Add some more in the comments if you like. The half of it: Saving Face, Love Simon, Carol, Handsome Devil, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Moonlight, A Single Man, Alex Strangelove, The Birdcage, Happiest Season, Rafiki, Bound, The Miseducation of Cameron Post, Desert Hearts, It's a Sin, Jenny's Wedding, Glee, But I'm a Cheerleader, My Beautiful Laundrette, Brokeback Mountain, Will and Grace, Gentleman Jack, Our Flags Mean Death, Sense8, Grace and Frankie, Sex Education, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, The Haunting of Bly Manor. And those are just the ones I know. If you can name any movies where a straight person has to, or a straight cis person has to hide their straight cis identity in order to be accepted into wider society, not be shunned from society, and not just a society that they like, not just they're entering a drag competition, but as in like otherwise they will be killed, they will be outed, they will be sent to a concentration camp, they whatever. Like if you can name name five movies and TV shows like that. I'm waiting. Put it in the comments right now. Don't Google it, just tell me. You're not allowed to why are you Googling? Stop Googling. You don't know? Okay, just say that you don't know. Yeah, exactly. So, living as an LGBTQ person before the turn of the millennium meant going through life looking for crumbs of queer content in media made for and by cis people. In school, I was teased relentlessly for being a lesbian. I didn't know what a lesbian was. I just knew it was bad to be one. And if I had any kind of lesbian representation that was accessible to a young egg closeted weirdo in fuck ass rural Australia in the late 90s and mid 2000s, maybe I would have realized that it's not a bad thing to be a lesbian. In fact, it's a fucking cool as shit thing to be a lesbian. And I love being a lesbian. And I love loving my lesbian wife. And we love being lesbians together. And honestly, I feel that's a common story among our generation, my generation and before, to kind of grow up not knowing anything about who we are, who we really are, and not knowing that there are other people like us. I'm so happy that kids these days can open TikTok and be like, oh, hey, there's another gay. Like, that's amazing. But seriously, pick up a book. If you don't understand what's happening now in Britain, in America, most of the 100 and something countries in the world, pick up a book, a history book. There are plenty of books that you can pick up. Libby is a free library app that has audiobooks and ebooks that you can just read for free. Does not have a great selection of queer books though, unfortunately. So having spent my entire life looking for people like me in media designed to hide people like me, let me tell you, we stand out. The thing you have to understand is that Dean Winchester and Castiel are gay trans men, and Supernatural's longest and lasting tragedy is that they were never able to express it fully. They were never able to be together like they so desperately wanted to. They raised a son together, they lived together, they rebelled for each other, they killed and died for each other, but letting them be together, even after Dean got on his knees in purgatory and cried while praying to Cass, and even after Cass died confessing his love for Dean, was apparently too much for this show. As one Tumblr user pointed out, the producers were sitting on a goldmine of 100,000 works. Their love has been put into words, gifs, graphics, art, vids, poems, and so much more since 2008. At the core of Supernatural is love, a love that propelled this to 15 seasons and counting, and is, indeed, the only lasting thing about it. Dean and Cass's love is the show's legacy. It will last until the sun swallows us all, and with us, the moon, the earth, and the stars. Well, that was a lot. Did we cry? Did we learn? Did we laugh? You tell me. So, thank you for watching. If you have anything to say, please put it down in the comments. If you have anything you want me to talk about, please put it down in the comments. If you would like this video to go viral amongst the Tumblr communities, please share it amongst your friends. If you see me on Tumblr, no you didn't, don't put my username in the comments, because I will hunt you down. You specifically. Cram it with walnuts, ugly.